When I was a corporate leader within a group organization, I was a mid-senior level manager, and the market was having a challenge getting results across the board. Like we'd struggled to stay performance indexed. And the journey I faced with kind of navigating, overseeing like 11 fitness center stores at the time, was that there was a lot of inconsistencies on how we went about our results. And what was common was I was good at that point in my career developing an individual, but I wasn't great at scaling how to develop people over a segment of people. So what was really transformational for my results as a leader was how I developed a cohesive people growth plan for all my individual leaders and tie that into a higher vision goal.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Quinn Harwood. He is a professional certified coach, speaker, and author of Growth Time, a Coaching Fable, the clear path to unlock your best life and leadership. He's passionate about empowering the next generation of mission movers to make real impact. Drawing from a journey that includes professional basketball, more than 2 decades in corporate leadership, and thousands of coaching sessions, he helps emerging and established leaders break through barriers and lead with bold confidence. His mindset is rooted in faith, resilience, and the belief that growth happens when intention meets action. Congrats on helping emerging and established leaders break through barriers and lead with bold confidence, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Yeah, Carl, I'm so excited to be on. I love even being the time to connect with you and your people and your audience. So I'm excited to see what we explore today and how we maybe help to change the world a little bit and build a little more connection with the people you serve.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a great segue into the question I want to ask you, which is how companies can rebuild the trust that's been lost between themselves and employees and the buying community or the public, I guess, consumers. Because there's a recent report about how like corporate trust is down to like 17%. And there's this overall, with all the layoffs recently, there's less and less trust in big business. So what are some of the ways that companies can go about taking steps to build that trust up again?
Yeah. Well, let's start with the pain point, really, Carl, because what brought the onslaught off is also the pathway to see success and see change in a corporate culture or an entrepreneurial business. And what I've seen is and experienced, unfortunately, which I think everyone on this call will have gone through, is really a breakdown in 3 kind of core values that I've seen. And the biggest thing that the breakdown in human connection with and how you actually have to realize where the real pain point is there a care component? Like there's a lack of care. So in the business professional settings, what I've seen is where that value is missing, a true sincere care for the individual, a care for their career, a care for their involvement, a way to bridge them into building a really meaningful relationship based upon performance and goals and results is where a breakdown is. And we've all walked through that. We've all had that experience where our boss didn't care, our leader didn't care. We feel slighted, we feel offended. And that brings up a lot of emotions. And what it brings up is a lot of disconnect. So care is one of those components that's just instrumental, that's missing. The other pain point I've seen is that in our businesses, in our communities, in our cultures, there's a lack of commitment. And what is a cry, I think, for that next generation of leaders who are coming up, who are disconnected, disenfranchised, and unengaged at work, is they don't believe their leader is fully committed to their personal growth and development. I can't tell you from my personal experience when I was in the corporate culture and felt like I was getting a runaround and getting burned and things were changing within the shape of the organization. And I didn't know that there was someone who really was committed to my personal growth and development in that organization. And that's a real big pain point. And of course, that leads to a breakdown in trust. And when that entity is broken, you get really disengaged. And the research, the Harris polls, the Gallup polls all show the disengagement that's out there. So care, commitment, and trust, and what causes people to leave, like to leave their work or to keep showing up for work, but not really showing up. And so that's a theme that's existing. So once you kind of wrestle with, here's the pain points, then you can work for the solve to how do we build back actionably trust within a relationship, within an organization. So that's what I've seen. And I think it's very identifiable from my personal experience to thousands of people I've coached. That's where the breakdown happens.
Yeah, there's definitely the that overwhelm, or like the like the middle management layer has often been like squeezed at companies, and so there's fewer the people to have those sorts of relationships with employees when it comes to someone who actually is their advocate or cares about them or has that more personal connection, just because there's sometimes seems like more reports to one person, or they're like one employee has multiple reports, so they don't really know who's responsible or who's accountable for serving that role. So it seems like there's just the amount of like the priorities of the company, which has to start from the top down, are not taking steps to prioritize these sorts of relationships like you just explained. And so I can see how it's when they're not focused on or emphasized, they get ignored because they are the ones that are harder to like systematize, and because everyone's different and what they need are slightly different, and you can't just check boxes and build these sort of relationships, because there's each employee is a whole human being with their different nuances and needs and stuff, and so it takes more effort and takes skills that frankly most executives haven't learned. You don't teach them in an MBA course how to lead like that, how to engage with people in that way. And so it's not surprising that this is what the result is. But so what are some of the ways that leaders or executives can go about and making the shift in the right direction?
Yeah, you nailed it, Carl. I mean, most of the times in corporate cultures or entrepreneur ventures, you get so indexed with the results, and profits come before people. And when profit comes before people, you get a lack of trust because you're not actually serving the people you're supposed to, and that's the people that are employed by you. So the key solution that I've seen is a growth culture. And I would kind of say like that's my mindset as a growth leader, a growth expert, someone who like really promotes how to grow personally and professionally. It's always at the individual that the problem solved. So the individual has to take ownership in the sense of their personal growth and development. And that's what really the power of what I do and get the support now as a coach is helping leaders understand where their personal growth exists and develop really intentional personal growth plans. Without that personal growth component and the soft skills you mentioned, without that personal growth component into leadership skills that are lacking or missing, what happens is we default to our base nature or our baseline, and there's nothing elevated. So we kind of stay at the level we're at, and we get the results we get with our people, with their groups and organizations. So the people growth component, and I've seen the best organizations and the best leaders do, they have a clear path, and it's leader led to people growth.
Yeah, so I imagine you've seen some of the transformations that's possible when the people at the top take this seriously and improve their own skill sets. Or what's an example of a success story you can share to give people a sense of how this works when it's done properly?
I would share like one from my own personal experience. When I was a corporate leader within a group organization, I was a mid-senior level manager, and the market was having a challenge getting results across the board. Like we struggled to stay performance indexed. And the journey I faced with kind of navigating, overseeing like 11 fitness center stores at the time, was that there was a lot of inconsistencies on how we went about our results. And what was common was I was good at that point in my career developing an individual, but I wasn't great at scaling how to develop people over a segment of people. So what was really transformational for my results as a leader was how I developed a cohesive people growth plan for all my individual leaders and tie that into a higher vision goal. So there was one alignment, one vision, and each person that was below me, I mandated and held them accountable to how they develop people under them. So it wasn't always conversations around results. It was conversations around, hey, tell me about your people that are under your wing. Tell me about their personal growth. How are you sewing into their leadership skills and their development? What's the pathway you develop for them? So we got into the people growing business. And in that, we indexed, the results shifted, results got elevated, and we've built a lot of careers based upon that.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you framed it with, because I can see how if you ask your direct reports what their employees, what their direct reports, how they're doing, and holding them accountable for it, and that helps reveal the skills, the leadership skills that your direct reports need to develop themselves in order to support the people that they're working with. And it can help people realize their own opportunities for growth as a manager, as a leader, and not just as, okay, what your people need to get better, but I don't need to get better. I'm fine as I am, because that is a huge mistake that I think a lot of executives or people in management think that since they're already in this elevated role, that they don't have anything more to learn or to improve. And so by that, having that, like, people asking people how their teams are doing, and expecting them to understand what's going on with these kind of personal growth processes that their teams are going through, that helps them realize how much they didn't know before they started this journey.
Absolutely. And I could think too, like a recent small business owner I coach, and how they're looking to scale their business. And as they've grown and outsourced, what they've realized is that when you're an individual in a small unit or team, you can actually have a lot more intimacy and hands-on developing the skills of your people. But as you scale, you have to get better at how you scale your people and develop your people. And when she actually took the steps and put in a growth process where, based upon leadership skills and core competencies, and held specific one-on-ones and performance reviews around people development and skill development, and held her branched out accountable leaders to that, well, the business only began to soar, and revenues and profits began to increase. And so that's a powerful layer to look through your lens. If you're listening today, it's probably a skill set you're not familiar with. It takes a lot of work, intentional work, to get good at people growth and people development, but it's your pathway to it. One really cool thing, Carl, that I've seen is that what people are looking for. Google did a study, a 10-year study called Project Oxygen. And in that, out of that study, that 10-year study, they found the most impactful thing that a team member wanted was to have a leader who was a coach in terms of a competency. And coaches are always concerned or focused on the growth and development, which leads to performance and performance results. But even more important for what we're talking about with human connection, it leads to human connection. It leads to people knowing that you're cared for them. You're committed to their growth and development. You're willing to encourage and challenge them. And that builds this underlying theme of trust, which goes back to your first conversation. Someone cares about me, someone's committed to me, and I can trust their viewpoint. All of a sudden, engagement goes up. So that's just a great scope of looking to think, like, how do I see the biggest change in my group or organization? How do I see the biggest shift in my leadership? Hey, how do you gravitate towards developing your competency as a coach leader and get involved in the people growth to performance growth?
Yeah, I love that example, and that study really shows the importance of investing in people this way, and it also, I think, is important to address one of the common objections or fears that people have with investing in their teams this way is that, oh, they're going to be so good they're going to leave, and I'm going to lose out on all this value that I invested into them. And what my response to that has always been like, well, if you don't invest in them, they're going to leave, before they do, they're not going to be as productive or not going to do a good job, so you're going to get less value from their contributions, and then you're going to be still out of trying and not being able to have them on your team. And then, but if you inspire them and you help them grow, one, they're going to stay longer because they have something that they know they can't just find anywhere else, because they're getting that connection, that sense of trust, that sense of belonging, that someone cares for them, and they're doing better work in the meantime while they're with you. And if they happen to leave for some other opportunity, then you didn't lose employee at your company, you gained an amazing connection at another company that you probably didn't have an in at yet. That might be either a like vendor or collaborator or like some other relationship that you now have, that if you need something from that business, you have an amazing in because that person is going to, oh yeah, I will do anything for this other company because we have these great relationships. And so, and then if you are bringing up people through your existing company, you're going to be able to replace that role because the people below them are already going to be well prepared for it because your system set up to prepare people for leadership roles. And so the replacing is not going to be that hard. And now you have this great connection at another company that you didn't have before. But I think there's this scarcity mindset that people have within the leadership roles these days, or executive roles, that they're not seeing the opportunities that the relationship side of things have. They're just thinking about it from, again, the profit side or the risk side. And it's such a self-defeating attitude to have.
Yeah, it's the journey of self-focused and fear-focused mindset. I'm focused on what do I get in return if I help this person and they leave. I'm afraid if I do help them, I've invested energy into this and I've wasted my time and space. You couldn't have said it better with it, Carl. The part I do kind of add onto that is there's so much of a buzzword out there of having culture. And so what is culture if you define it? If you have a growth culture, you're plugging somebody right back into that system of growth, and you're in a constant rhythm of grow, develop, release, grow, develop. Because the worst thing they can do is leave you, but they're still showing up on your payroll.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way of putting it, because there's a lot of people that are currently on the books, but are not necessarily mentally, physically they show up to work, but mentally and emotionally they're not there, and they don't contribute the same way they could. And yeah, that culture isn't what you say on your business plan. It's how you show up every day and how your people show up every day. And when you actually have a healthy culture that is investing in people and empowering them, that attracts the best people to want to work for you. And so even if one person has left and you invest a lot into them, but they're going out and talking about how awesome you are, they're probably going to attract more of the best talent that wants to come and work for you, because you're known for having an amazing culture that invests in people and helps them grow and develop. So it's the current struggles that companies have with attracting and retaining the right people are solved by having an amazing culture and actually investing in people, because then you're not going to be having to hunt for them. They're going to be beating your door down trying to find a way in because they want to experience that.
Yeah. And just jumping back to a thought that you talked about, how do you rebuild trust? And we're talking a lot about growth and growth cultures and leadership and people. But the journey I share often with entrepreneurs or people I coach or organizations is it really starts with you as an individual and your commitment to your personal growth. Not necessarily in leadership development, but how are you growing personally? Because this next generation that's coming up, there's a lot of things that are gaps or missing opportunities, and they almost don't know how to navigate their personal life, which if you can't navigate you, which is one of the greatest challenges of human existence, is how we navigate ourselves and navigate our own life, you're going to have a hard time really getting out of your own way to develop and grow at others. So that's the journey I've walked through personally. And I share quite a bit in the book I recently released, Growth Time, The Clear Path to Your Best Life in Leadership. It's really for business professionals on what are the key growth zones I need to navigate my own personal life. And then that's going to allow me to show up better in terms of daily with my leadership and my leadership of people, and then the leadership skills I need to do to really make a big impact, which is what the next generation really wants, is to make impact and be significant.
Yeah, and I think that what you touched on about the lack of connection with oneself is a big inhibitor for ability to connect with other people, because unless you know who you are and what you care about, then it's hard for you to find people that share those same values, because you don't know what you're comparing them to. And no one's really taught in a formal way how to be self-referential or like reflective and understand who you are, what drives you, and what that sort of developmental experiences like growing up and how it shapes who you are as a person. And I think also in general, just the educational system where like you pick your major when you're a junior in high school and you graduate college when you're 21, 22, and your brain finishes developing when you're 25. So by the time you're a couple years into your career, you're a completely different person than when you supposedly picked what you wanted to do for your career. So just there's all these things that people aren't necessarily equipped for, that they don't even know they could work on, that would help them solve a lot of these problems with the way they lead and the connections they're able to make with their teams.
Yeah, and I really think that the next great generation of leaders, to be a great 21st century leader, you can't just isolate to performance, production, and leadership. There's a generation that's rising up that they need some coaching, and they need more coaching also around how to navigate life skills, not just their personal professional leadership skills. And that's going to be a distinction. That's going to be a real distinction. What I found is I developed human connection relationships when I was having people under me. And oftentimes I would give them thoughts or coaching tips on how to navigate some of the personal journeys they were experiencing within themselves. That built a different level of care, commitment, and trust. And what that did is elevated any feedback I could give them around their personal skill development in the workplace. So I really see that as just pivotal. And I think the next generation is going to help people grow through life and leadership. And they're not going to get stuck on, well, life, that's not my job to help them navigate life. Or how do I even help that next individual navigate life? Well, I've kind of simplified it, which I hope works real well. And I know it does in that growth kind of time theory that I've written and seen great results with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Quinn. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like, leave a comment, and subscribe. If you want to connect with myself or Quinn, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.